You see the text pop up? It's from Molière Dent's Grange, asking for a last-minute, deeply inconvenient favor. Every rational part of your brain is screaming, just say you're busy. But what comes out of your mouth is a calm, yeah, of course, no problem. The second the words are out, you feel that familiar sinking feeling of self-betrayal. And just like that, one simple yes has completely derailed your entire day. Your internal world becomes a frantic control room. You're juggling schedules, anticipating needs, and running complex emotional algorithms just to keep everyone happy, even people with conflicting demands. Your own plans? They've been sacrificed to the god of not making things awkward. But here's the thing. If this feels familiar, it's something much deeper. Let's be very clear. This automatic impulse to please isn't a character flaw, and it certainly doesn't make you a doormat. It's the surface-level symptom of a brilliant, deeply ingrained survival architecture. There is a powerful reason your nervous system does this, and it's not what you think. To see it, we first have to understand the classic toolkit for survival. You've likely heard of the fight-or-flight response. When our nervous system senses a threat, it prepares to either confront it or escape it. Science later added a third common response, freeze, where we become still, like an animal playing dead. But what happens when fighting is too dangerous? You can't run away, and freezing won't make the threat disappear. The brain has a fourth, often overlooked survival response, a strategy based not on confrontation or escape, but on social connection itself, a way to disarm the threat. This isn't kindness, which is a choice. It's compulsive appeasement, a deeply learned strategy to neutralize a perceived threat by becoming as helpful and non-confrontational as possible. This unconscious survival program is so consistent that psychologists have given it a specific name. It's known as the Fawn Response. The term was popularized by psychotherapist Pete Walker, an expert in complex PTSD, who reframed it not as a weakness but as a highly intelligent adaptation to threat. It's now recognized as the fourth primary survival response, but it operates on a fundamentally different principle than the other three. Fight and flight are active defenses, strategies to overpower or outrun a threat. Freeze is a passive defense, a way to become invisible to it. But fawn is a social defense. It's the only response that moves towards the danger, attempting to connect with the threat and appease it. It's a sophisticated strategy for when you can neither overpower nor escape. But it isn't innate, it's learned. For a child in a home with a volatile or demanding caregiver, their own needs can feel like a liability. They learn very quickly that their safety and their connection to that adult depends entirely on meticulously managing the adult's emotional state. It's an impossible, high-stakes diplomatic mission they are sent on every single day. Imagine a small, peaceful nation bordering a vast, unpredictable empire. War is not an option. That's fight. Relocating the entire country is impossible. That's flight. So to survive, it develops a different kind of statecraft. It learns the empire's moods, anticipates its demands, and offers constant tribute, your emotional label, to maintain a fragile peace. It becomes an indispensable, perfectly agreeable ally. This isn't just a political choice, it's a survival map. But how does a map drawn in childhood become the only road you can see as an adult? That map gets burned into our neurology. To understand how, we have to go from the external strategy to the internal experience. It starts by reshaping the very architecture of attention itself. This reshaped attention becomes a kind of internal radar, constantly scanning. Is he okay? Was that sigh about me? What does she need right now to stay calm? Your own feelings, your needs, your frustrations, your desires are not just ignored, they are actively suppressed. They become sources of potential danger in a fragile environment. This isn't just a psychological habit, it's a physical process that rewires the brain. In fact, research into early childhood development shows us exactly how this architecture gets built. Researchers at Harvard's Center on the Developing Child call it serve and return. A child serves a need, and a caregiver's response builds healthy brain circuits. But when that return is unpredictable or dangerous, the child adapts. They learn to ignore their own serve and instead focus entirely on managing the return. This repeated experience literally builds a different kind of brain. Over time, the neural pathways for scan, their mood, and appease become 8-lane superhighways, paved and reinforced every single day. Meanwhile, the pathways for what do I need right now are left like forgotten country roads, overgrown and difficult to travel. This isn't a glitch in your system. This is a system built with incredible precision for a very specific purpose. So let's reframe this. The fawn response is not a sign of weakness. It is the signature of a brilliant survivor. It was an ingenious strategy developed by a child in an impossible situation. This is where real self-compassion begins. Think of that younger version of you. That child was incredibly resilient, learning a complex social strategy just to secure safety and connection. The Fawn response wasn't a character flaw, it was their masterpiece, born out of a profound need to be loved. But what if that past doesn't feel traumatic at all? Your nervous system, however, has a much broader definition of threat. It doesn't require big, dramatic events. Chronic parental stress, emotional inconsistency, or a home where connection felt conditional can be enough to teach a child that their safety depends on being perfectly agreeable. This wires fawning directly to the idea of care. This creates the central myth we need to debunk, that fawning is kindness. True kindness is a choice, an offering from a place of fullness. Fawning is a compulsion, a tax paid from a place of fear. And the instruction to pay that tax isn't stored in your conscious memory. Because your body's memory isn't about stories, it's about instructions. It remembers the felt sense of tension in a room, the subtle shift in a person's breathing, the specific tone of voice that meant danger. It's a procedural memory, a physical script for survival, and practicing that script for years hones some incredibly sharp and often unacknowledged abilities. That constant scanning for danger is the very thing that builds profound empathy. The hypervigilance required to survive becomes a finely tuned emotional radar. You're not just accommodating, you've become an expert in social dynamics, capable of seeing the subtle textures of human interaction that others miss. But there is a profound paradox at the heart of this incredible strength. The same survival system that now floods you with resentment is the very one that once guaranteed your safety. Your nervous system is still fighting a war that is over. The challenge now isn't to erase this skill, but to gently inform your body that the peace treaty has been signed. Because the cost of this constant vigilance, the burnout, the loss of self, is a price you no longer have to pay. This isn't about blaming the past, it's about reclaiming the present. The goal isn't to become selfish, but to make your kindness a conscious choice again. And the journey back to that choice begins with one small, manageable action. So the first step isn't to force a no. It's to introduce a pause. When Molière Dente's great asks for that favor, your only job is to say, "Let me check and get back to you." This phrase acts as a circuit breaker, interrupting the superhighway of automatic appeasement. It creates a small gap between the request and your response, giving your conscious mind a moment to catch up with your body's impulse. But in that new, quiet space, a very old fear is likely to surface. That fear has a voice, and it whispers, "If I stop being so helpful, they'll abandon me." That is the sound of your inner diplomat, the child who learned that agreeableness was the price of safety. But that is a contract based on an outdated map. True connection is not built on your performance, but on your presence. And that changes the entire story of who you are. So let's be absolutely clear. You are not a flawed person. You are a highly skilled survivor. Your internal architecture is not a mistake. It is a masterpiece of adaptation that has now served its purpose. Seeing it this way isn't about fixing a flaw. It's about honoring a brilliant strategy and gently letting it rest. The work was never about mastering the word no. It has always been about learning how to finally and quietly hear your own yes. What is the one small thing your inner world is asking for right now that you can finally attend to? After learning that people-pleasing is a brilliant survival strategy, what's the one small yes your inner world is asking for right now? Tell me in the comments below. I read and reply to every single one. But this is just one piece of the puzzle. In our next video, we explore its twin behavior, the compulsive need to apologize for everything. Subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't lose access to these truths. Like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it.